So we've used two different bar graphs so far, and in both cases we've concluded that Nike is a business success story. But as I said, all questions have multiple ways of answering, and especially these open-ended questions, and you can justify the opposite by taking a look at different data altogether, which we're going to do in this example. So the first, Nike has been in the news, at least in the last year or two, about where they make their products and how they're so reasonably priced because they are making them in places where the working conditions are so poor. So I took a look at where most of the Nike products are made, and here is the list. It's China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Italy, Philippines, Taiwan, and South Korea. And so what are the working conditions like in these countries? So I chose to take a look at what the manufacturing minimum wage is. So I know that in Canada, minimum wage is about $15 an hour, but manufacturing minimum wage, it looks like, is about $30. So that includes manufacturing things like lumber or automobile sector. So that's why that seems relatively high compared to what we think of as minimum wage. But how does that compare to the other countries where Nike makes most of their products? Because Canada is not where Nike makes their running shoes, for example. They make them in these countries right here. And take a look at these numbers. They vary significantly. And we're going to illustrate how big of a difference these are in bar graph. So again, I'm going to go with the traditional up and down, the vertical bar graph. So I'm going to have an axis that has the different countries on the horizontal axis. And so here are the countries. And on the vertical axis, we're going to have the hourly minimum wage. And this is the manufacturing minimum wage. So picking my vertical axis, I know it has to go up to 34 because Italy has the highest minimum wage on that front. And we want to spread out the data as much as possible. So if we start with going up in fives, there's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And notice I've run out of room, and that's going to happen to you sometimes too when you choose an axis. So I've run out of room, which means I need to start again, and I'm going to erase what I've done, and I have to choose a scale that's going to fit this graph, or get bigger graph paper. So I'm going to redraw my axis in. And this time, instead of going up every square being 1 and labeling them in 5, I'm going to have every square be 2. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So there's $10 an hour. And then I'm not going to label them all. I'm just going to count from now on. So that's 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So it still spreads it out nicely. There's a little bit of empty space at the top, but at least I have room for all my data. So now if I take a look and plot China, and I'm only plotting minimum wage, so I don't need a legend because they're only going to be 1 bar each. So it's 4.1. So China is just above 4, which you can probably hardly see, the little bit above 4, and this is China. Running out of room there. And if we do Indonesia, let's do another one, Taiwan. So all your countries would be along the axis here, leaving a little bit of a break. So let's do Taiwan. And Taiwan is 9.5. So it's going to go up to just below 10. There's Taiwan. So it's important here to have each bar the same width. So the Taiwanese bar is 1 square wide, and so is the Chinese bar. So go on and you fill it all out and make sure you title your axis. So to now, here's the finished product, and notice that it's got a horizontal axis labeled, the vertical axis is labeled, there's a title, all the bars have the same width. You don't need a color legend for this one because there's just the one bar and it's blue. So those are the physical features of the bar graphs that we're looking for. Now take a step back and say, what does this graph tell us? Well, I take a look at it and I say, well, look at this. Most of the bars are very low. They're making below $10 an hour. So most of the countries making product for Nike make below $10 an hour. This is far lower than Canada. Only one country makes a high minimum wage. Only Italy makes a high minimum wage. So those are my observations directly from the graph. My conclusion is that Nike is not a success story when comparing hourly wages. And my assumption, or some of my assumptions, are that, all right, if I am assuming that most of the materials are made in all of these countries, because that's the majority of the countries. So I don't think Italy, even though there's manufacturing happening in Italy, I don't think a lot of the Nike products are being made in Italy. I would need to do some more research on that. So my conclusion assumes that Italy is not being used a lot to produce the products, produce the Nike products. I'm also assuming that the way they calculated this hourly wage is the same in each country. So the hourly wage is measured the same way. In each country. So those are my two assumptions. So in all 3 examples, 3 different bar graphs all tell a different story. Here is the trend that justifies the conclusion that I make, and that's what we're expecting for your project as well.